Sanctum, James Cameron, prominently on the box, even though he's just an executive on this one. Going in, I knew nothing about this movie. It was a random find at actually a used clothing store. And at a glance, I assumed it was a documentary. James Cameron playing around with his water bots, perhaps. But no, not a documentary, although the opening does kind of have the look and feel of a documentary. It's actually a survival thriller in the vein of 127 Hours, or perhaps even the end of Into the Wild. The filmmakers describe it themselves as a monster movie without a monster, though this cave, I think, is actually the monster here. Now, this film is kind of criticized for having clunky acting. And much of the first 30 minutes, I suppose, does. Now, I'm not really here to talk about acting, but I think a lot of that comes from the guy who plays, I guess he plays kind of an older teenager. And I think part of the issue was he acted like one, which is insecure. And audiences imitate in their hearts what they see an actor emoting. And there are some feelings like insecurity we don't like feeling. So it's better if an actor delivers their lines with confidence while doing something that is symbolic of an icky feeling like insecurity. And which actually I feel was one of the issues with Captain Marvel. Now, although Cameron didn't direct this, its clunky opening felt very similar to the beginning of Titanic. And like Titanic, once the tragedy starts, all film sins are forgiven, because the last half of this movie is a hell of a scary ride. A cave is violently flooding, and the only way to survive is to go deeper down its throat. This is a rare movie where I feel my little slideshow here really does not give a true enough picture as to how good the 3D is incorporated into the feel of this film. The 3D crushes you here. Now, 3D does tend to have a dollhouse effect and makes things look miniature. In here, trapped in tight caves, this is an ideal location for that dollhouse effect. The frame squeezes you so tight, you feel the air in short supply. You feel the rocks cutting at your sides as you try and squeeze through. And yet, occasionally, when it does open up, sometimes even to big cathedral spaces, the space allows you a breath of fresh air, as if the film itself is giving you a cue that, okay, it's okay to breathe for a moment as you take in that extra space. Although the stereo here is at its weakest whenever it pulls right back. The landscape shots that you see a lot of at the beginning of the movie almost feel flat when they pull back and show the magnificent mouth of this cave, which it's really too bad they didn't have any means to capture that in hyper stereo. You'd probably need a helicopter flying up a rig to have cameras 10 or 20 feet apart to do that. So I understand why they didn't. Now, the title is Sanctum, and at first I thought it was just a scary-sounding word they threw on, but on second thought, when I consider a moment in the film where the experienced caver explains why on earth he would ever want to come down to these caves to begin with, he sort of describes it as something akin to going to church. This tight little area is a sanctuary from the world. And it reminded me of an old television interviewer with a researcher who spent a year in a cave so that others could study its effect on a person. What struck me is the researcher talked about the cave as if it were a person she missed. Funny how the difference between terrifying and secure should be so thin.